Thank you for joining us here at the Paramount City Hall. This is a special notice that public participation accessibility for the City Council and for the successor agency for the Paramount Redevelopment Agency meetings that are scheduled for December 15th, 2020 this afternoon. Pursuant to Executive Order N-29-20 executed by the Governor of California on March 17th, 2020, and as a response to mitigating the spread of coronavirus known as COVID-19, the meeting of the City Council scheduled for Tuesday, December 15th, 2020 at 5 p.m. will allow members of the public to participate and address the City Council during the open session of the meeting via live stream and or by teleconference only. And with that, I will now turn it over to Mayor Peggy Lemons to open our meeting. Mayor Lemons?
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. So I'm going to call to order the December 15, 2020 meeting of the Paramount City Council. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Vilma Cuellar Stallings and the invocation by Deacon Oscar Corseo of Our Lady of the Rosary.
Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Give me just one moment to get Deacon Corsios on the line. I apologize, I am unable to get him on the line.
Okay, if it's not too much of a surprise, Councilmember Aguayo, could you lead us in prayer?
Of course. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight and guide us, show us the way as we make some decisions that affect our community. Always be sure that we have the best interest in mind of all of our residents. And amen.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Could we have roll call of council members, please?
Councilmember Aguayo.
Here.
Councilmember Guillen.
Here.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings.
Here.
Vice Mayor Olmos.
Here.
Mayor Lemons.
Here. Next, Mr. Moreno, I understand we need to add a subsequent needs item. Would you like to give us some information regarding that?
Absolutely, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. Tonight, we're asking the council to add an item on the agenda for tonight. This topic did come out after the agenda was distributed. It would be the first item under new business if the council votes to add this, and it has to do with the closure of City Hall and the City Yard during the holiday season in response to the COVID pandemic. And once again, this would require a 4/5 vote by the City Council to add it to the agenda tonight.
Okay, do I have a motion to add the subsequent needs item?
Motion by Olmos.
Second by Cuellar Stallings.
Okay, moved and seconded by Olmos Stallings. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo.
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen.
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos.
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. And as John mentioned, that will be the first item under new business. The next thing that we have are presentations, and we're going to start with some certificates of recognition for the 2020 Paramount Education Partnership donors. So tonight we're going to be recognizing some of the most generous members of our community. These are the businesses and individuals who have sent Paramount kids to college by donating to the Paramount Education Partnership Scholarship Fund in 2020. Since PEP began, nearly $1.3 million has been awarded to Paramount students attending a university, community college, or technical school. A total of 420 scholarships have been given out over this time. This year, there were 46 scholarships worth $154,000. They were awarded a few months ago. The program would be impossible without our donors. Normally, we would feature them at our Education Month City Council meeting. Our Education Month recognitions didn't happen for obvious reasons, but we wanted to thank them publicly before the year ends. I will read the names of those who gave $1,000 or more to help our youth pursue their educational dreams. All other donors will be shown on the screen. Paramount Unified School District topped the list once again by holding various fundraisers that produced $21,800. World Energy gave $10,000. Marcon Vinegar USA gave $10,000. Lions Plaza Garfield, $5,000. National Christian Foundation, $5,000. The Benevity Community Impact Fund, $5,000. Fiesta Taxi Co-op, $3,000. Carlton Forge Works, $2,500. J1 Foods, $2,500. Matco Forge, $2,500. The Hoffmeyer Revocable Living Trust, $2,000. Kenny's Auto Service, $1,500. Hoffman Plastic Compounds, $1,000. And SC Fuels donated $1,000. We thank these contributors who have so generously helped our students. Each of them will receive a certificate of appreciation and a special mug celebrating their donations, both of which are shown on the screen. Please welcome PEP Board of Directors President Matt Knabe, who also has a few words about the program.
Happy holidays, City of Paramount. I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of those that have donated to PEP this year. 2020 has been an incredible, difficult year, and now, more than ever, the PEP Scholarship Program is important to the kids of the Paramount Unified School District with college aspirations. I am so proud of the way that our business community in Paramount has surrounded and supported the program this year, raising the necessary funds to make the program possible. I would be remiss if I did not say a special thank you to all of those at Paramount Unified School District for their incredible job in the Pennies for PEP program this year. It has been amazing what they have done to financially support the program over the last few years. Lastly, a very special thank you to you, City Council, for your awesome support of the program as well. I've had the privilege of being involved in this program for 18 plus years when Richard Hollingsworth first created it. I am glad that I am president of the board and have played some small role in the benefit of this program. From our family to yours, Merry Christmas.
That was very nice. And
Good evening, Madam Mayor and
members of the City Council. My name is Kinali Sikasam.
Okay. So we do want to thank President Knabe for his participation all of these years and being so supportive of the program. And the people on the screen who we showed, your donation means just as much to us. So thank you very much for helping so many Paramount children reach their goals and dreams. On behalf of the Paramount City Council, we sincerely thank you. Okay, next, we are going to make a presentation regarding the Government Finance Officers Association for the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, better known as CAFR. Now we have presentations of the award to the city related to our finances. The City Council and our staff have a long history of managing the public's money carefully and conservatively. This is one of our most important jobs. Our budgets are balanced and we keep a healthy reserve of funds to protect our operations. Each year, our finance department produces a comprehensive annual financial report, a document that is required by state law. These reports have received awards for excellence over the last 3 decades from the Government Finance Officers Association, a nonprofit made up of professionals throughout California. Last year was no different. We have once again been honored, this time for our 2019 report. This is thanks to our finance department, whose work year after year is outstanding in its clarity and its transparency. With us tonight from the association to present the award virtually is Kine Ling Sukesium, a partner with the accounting firm of Eide Bailey. Hello, Kinley.
And I am an audit partner with Eide Bailey. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Kinali Sukasum, and I am an audit partner with Eide Bailey. It is my honor to present the Certificate of Achievement in Excellence in Financial Reporting to the City of Paramount for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019. In order to qualify for this program, the city must go above the reporting requirements of generally accepted accounting principles, and the report is then reviewed by the GFOA Special Review Committee. This is the 37th consecutive year that the city has received this prestigious award. And once again, congratulations.
Thank you
Happy
so much.
holidays, City of Paramount. I just want to say a heartfelt thank you to all of those that have donated to PEP this
And we thought this was just going to be easy breezy to go back to our virtual meetings. Okay, so thank you very much, Kim Lee, and also we want to thank our finance staff. We appreciate your work so very much, and that'll be it for tonight's presentation. Next up, we have City Council public comment updates. Mr. Moreno, do you have any for us?
Yes, we do, Madam Mayor. We have a few here follow-ups from the November 17th City Council meeting. The first resident that spoke that we have action and comments in regards to was Mr. Gerald Serta, and he had 2 issues. His first one was the progress of the neighborhood parking lot concept at Hayter and Alondra. And as in response to this, after some residents from the Passage Perilla neighborhood had complained to the city about a lack of street parking, we began to look into potential short and long-term parking solutions. One of those ideas was to work with the LADWP to use their land that's located adjacent to this neighborhood. And we would use that to build a parking lot. We even hired a lobbyist to help us go through the channels. And we were recently informed by our lobbyists that the LADWP, they have instilled a moratorium on all new leases due to the pandemic. They have limited resources that actually will not allow them to accept any new lease applications until further notice. Possibly this could go on for the next 2 years. Our Public Works Director, Ms. Adriana Figueroa, has contacted Mr. Serta to provide him an update for that. The second item from Mr. Serta was, despite that the city allows dogs in parks, some outdated signage remains posted which indicates that dogs are not allowed. We are in the process of replacing park signs that contain the old regulations with new signs, and this is an ongoing process that just started, so some old signs are still up, but we will have them all replaced soon. So moving on to the next speaker, Mr. Jaime Lopez. He requested specific information about the Unity in the Community program as well as its efforts from 2016. In regards to the 2020 Unity Community effort, the city manager provided him an update on the committee's efforts at the November 17th City Council meeting. In regards to the 2016 Unity in the Community effort, on December 7th, staff sent an email to Mr. Lopez notifying him that his questions and his specific information from 2016 were forwarded to the established Unity in the Community Committee. Once these answers are received from the committee, we will forward them to Mr. Lopez. Moving on to the third speaker that required some comment and feedback on was Mr. Alfredo Buenuelos. Mr. Buenuelos requested that the city bring back the parking subcommittee or suspend all parking fines in the city. As a follow-up to this, as reported at the November 17th council meeting, shifting to a virtual parking subcommittee would not be as effective as holding the in-person meetings for a number of reasons that we expressed at that time. We will continue to monitor the COVID health orders for non-essential in-person meetings and revisit the possibility of in-person meetings when social distancing orders are scaled back. Now, regarding the suspension of parking fines, the effects of the state stay-at-home order issued in March of 2020 really presented us with some unique challenges for our residents to move their vehicles. So at that time, we temporarily suspended parking enforcement to accommodate the needs for our residents in regards to street parking. However, in the weeks immediately following the suspension, our Public Works Department observed an increase of trash, debris, and settlement that was gathering in the gutters and then eventually in the storm drains from vehicles ignoring the street sweeping notices. Most notably, we did find an alarming amount of used masks and gloves along the street and gutters in the storm drains and so on. This jeopardizes the health and safety of our residents and impacting our ability to comply with the basic public health requirements. So as a result, we resumed parking enforcement over an extended two-phase approach starting May 11th to ensure that vehicles move out of the way for our street sweeper to keep our streets clean. Due to the environmental health and safety risks that we saw back then associated with vehicles not moving, suspending parking enforcement is not recommended at this time. And that concludes the public comment updates from the November 17th meeting. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Moreno before we move to public comments? Okay, do we have any public comments?
We do, Madam Mayor. We have 2 oral and 1 written. We will start with the 2 oral, and I'll now turn it over to our Assistant City Manager, Andrew Villalpando, who will run us through those. Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. As John mentioned, we will move on to our public comment portion of the City Council meeting. Just a reminder for those watching this evening on our YouTube channel, these calls are taken over the phone remotely. We contact each public comment requester one by one to be heard by the City Council. So bear with me as I get the first call on the line.
Hello?
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Alfredo Buenuelos.
This is him.
Hi, Mr. Buenuelos. This is the City of Paramount calling regarding your request for public comment at the City Council meeting. You're being broadcast live to the City Council now. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes, and it will begin now.
Thank you, and good evening to everyone. Thank you for addressing my concerns or my previous public comment. I understand what you're saying, and I did get to see a little bit of what you're talking about in regards to the masks on the floor and that sort of thing. I do, however, object to that being a valid reason for why we cannot address the parking issue in the city, whether it be through the committee or whether it be through the specific things that need to change and that we are hoping that the committee would be able to bring forward. And that is that we need the solutions now. We cannot wait until I agree with that. In-person meetings are much more effective, but we cannot wait, and something needs to be done. I understand, well, I personally know people that have been affected in my area, and I see the citation people constantly driving up around late hours of the night. That is not fair. That is very unjust considering considering the situation that we're in. We just can't have that happening. This is just another regressive taxation system, and quite frankly, it's very frustrating to have to explain and justify these things. So I agree. Let's not suspend the let's not suspend the street sweeping. That's not what I'm arguing for. But let's stop giving fines out during late hours of the night at the very least. So, and then we can even expand on that and stop, sending people to collection, particularly with housing issues, and so much more. How much time do I have?
Mr. Gonzalez, you have 55 seconds left.
Great. So, another thing in regards to that, I think we are doing much more harm than we are doing good with the closure of Salud Park. A lot of senior people in the mornings go out there for their morning walk, morning jog, and that's also very good for their health. I would like to request for that to reopen at the very least at early hours of the day. Also, I'd like to tell the public to pay attention to the item number 10 in regards to the water rate studies in anticipation of some water rate hikes. Also, please address my previous questions about housing and evictions and what are we going to do about the eviction moratorium ending, and why haven't you brought up my previous the comments on term limits. We need to address everything that is spoken to by the public, and we need to do it clearly. We need more transparency.
Mr. Banuelos, your time is up.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Do we have another speaker?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we actually do have one more, and I mentioned that we have 2 oral and 1 written, but it turns out we just have the 2 oral. So Andrew's going to get the next one on the line. As he's doing that, I would like to address one of the issues that Mr. Buenuelos brought up, and that was the closure of Salud Park. David Johnson our Community Service and Recreation Director, Mr. Johnson, has some information I wanted him to share about that. Dave?
Yes, thank you, John. Contrary to what was said, actually Salud Park is open. It's not fully open, but we are operating hours Monday through Friday. Recreation staff opens the park 8 to 10 a.m., and you do require a mask to come onto the site. It's also then opened from 4 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. Then on weekends, it's fully opened. I think it opens around 8 o'clock and closes around 3 p.m. So Salud Park is open. It's just not fully open, obviously, because of COVID restrictions.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Hello?
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Viliana de la Rosa.
Hi, this is me. This is Liliana.
Good evening. We're calling regarding your request for public comment at the Paramount City Council meeting. You're being broadcast live right now to the City Council, and your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Your time will start now.
Great. So good evening, everyone. My name is Liliana de la Rosa. I am the Partnership Development Coordinator for CORE Los Angeles. And CORE is a nonprofit organization helping the most marginalized communities impacted by crisis. And the current crisis right now that we're affected by is the COVID-19 pandemic. So the city of Paramount has been identified as a hotspot with a surge of positive COVID-19 cases by LA County, and routine testing is the best way to keep communities safe. For that reason, I'm excited to invite the community of Paramount to receive free COVID-19 testing starting tomorrow, Wednesday, December 16th, and until Saturday, December 19th this week. Oh, I'm sorry. One moment.
Ms. De La Rosa. Oh, looks like Ms. De La Rosa hung up. Mayor Lemons, it looks like
Okay.
the public.
Okay, if we could just expand a little bit, please correct me if I misspeak or add to this. I believe the free testing from Curative is going to be this Saturday, correct?
It's actually Wednesday through Saturday. It starts tomorrow.
Wednesday through Saturday. And I also understood it's by appointment, but they will take walk-ups?
That is correct, Mayor.
Okay. So you can make an appointment, and that information, I believe, is available on all of our social media. And if the appointments are fully booked, which last I heard they were, you can still walk up and possibly still receive a test. Is that information all correct?
Yes, it is, Mayor.
And I also understand that because it booked so quickly, we are in the process of trying to schedule another date for more testing. Do we have any updates on that?
Yeah, Mr. Johnson does.
Okay.
Yes,
David, can you share with us?
Yes, we're working with LA County and an organization called CORE. So they are looking at additional dates next week, and I actually think they actually have those dates up next week. I'm looking at some information here. There are spots open for, let's see, can I see that? Thank you. There's a lot of spots open, so they're budgeting for 1,200 open slots. And there's a lot of spots open for Monday the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. There's also dates open or spots open on Friday, December 18th, and Saturday, December 19th. So there's still a lot of spots that people can use.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. Does that conclude our public comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor, it does.
Thank you very much. We'll move to the consent calendar.
So moved by Olmos.
Second by Aguayo.
And moved and seconded by Olmos and Aguayo. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Quer Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. The next item under old business is a receive and file for the withdrawal of appeal or denial by the Planning Commission of a conditional use permit number 887.
Yes, our planning director, Mr. John Carver, will handle this item. Mr. Carver?
Yes, thank you, John, Madam Mayor and council members. This item is an appeal of the Planning Commission denial of conditional use permit 887. And that conditional use permit was a request to operate a recycling collection facility at the rear of Northgate Market at 16259 Paramount Boulevard. This conditional use permit was denied by the Planning Commission at its July 2020 meeting, and the applicant appealed that decision to the City Council. The applicant has now submitted a written request to withdraw the appeal, and that concludes my report. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Carver. Are there any questions? Okay, we'll note that as received and filed. We'll move into new business, and we're going to start with the subsequent needs item.
Yes, Madam Mayor and council members, as I mentioned, this item did come up after the agenda had gone up. As we all know, and as we all heard from one of our speakers tonight in public comment period, COVID-19 cases continue to surge throughout everywhere, and Paramount is no exception. In fact, as you heard, Paramount's one of the hot spots that have been identified throughout the county. We, as an organization, have instructed our employees to practice a heightened sense of vigilance around the workplace, and that includes stuff that we've also done too, including plexiglass, social distancing measures, hand sanitizers, issuing everybody face masks, and on and on. And despite all these exhaustive efforts, though, to minimize exposure and risk of COVID-19 in our workplace, we're experiencing a noticeable increase in cases. And this is mostly from employees who come in contact with family members or friends who are not, turns out, practicing the same level of safety that we have here in our workplace. So as a result, as a precautionary measure, I'm requesting that the City Council approve the closure of City Hall and the City Maintenance Yard facility during the week of December 28th through December 31st. This week is in between Christmas and New Year's holiday, and our operations at the city have historically been less busier during this week. Moreover, operational closures during this week are very typical for other cities in our area. In fact, we surveyed some of our neighboring cities, and the cities of Lakewood, Bellflower, Signal Hill, La Mirada, Hawaiian Gardens, and Whittier are all taking that week off or 2 weeks off during this time. The expected reduction in business would enable us to implement heightened social distancing measures in response to increased COVID-19 health orders, and kind of allow us just to recharge and reboot as we return for the new year. So some of the facilities and services, however, will remain open, and that includes the public safety station, which will have holiday hours during that day, and that would be during those days, and that would be from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through all the way through New Year's Day. Graffiti response and removal will also remain available, as well as our standby emergency maintenance workers who will remain on call. Our full-time staff will be issued 4 days of holiday pay to be used during this time off, and this is in addition to the already regular approved paid holiday. If approved tonight, we will definitely notify the public of our closures and also the availability of online resources in which they conduct business. And with that, it is recommended that the City Council approve the closure of City Hall and the City Maintenance Yard facility during the week of December 28th through December 31st, 2020. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. Do we have any questions?
Councilmember Guillen does. I'm sorry, I didn't hear that clearly. John, was that going to be paid?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question, Councilman again?
Was it going to be paid, those days off?
Yes, it will be for all full-time employees, correct.
Okay, so not having to use any vacation time or anything like that?
That is correct, if approved.
Perfect. Okay, thanks.
If there's no other questions, we have a motion in order.
Councilmember Queristone, motion to approval of ordinance number 1145.
Second, Councilmember Guillen.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor. If we could get the motion clear, that was not ordinance number 1145. I'm sorry. This is for the City Hall and yard closure.
So, Councilmember Quer Stallings, your motion would be to approve the closure of City Hall and the maintenance yard facility during the week of December 28th through December 31st, 2020. Yes,
ma'am. And I'm sorry about that. I was reading the wrong item. But I did. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I apologize for that. Yes, so moved.
Thank you. That's the motion by Quer Stallings, seconded by Councilmember Guillen. May we have a roll call, please?
Can I ask one question before we do that?
Sure. Go right ahead.
John, you mentioned for full-time employees. How many part-time employees does this affect, and why aren't we covering them?
The part-time employees are hourly rate, hourly paid. So there are some employees that are covering for full-time employees that are taking vacation now and throughout next week. So in other words, there are several full-time employees that will be out, and part-timers will be covering them. In addition to that, the bulk of our part-timers are working the STAR program, and the STAR program is actually closed for that week every year anyway. And as far as some of the public works part-timers, they will be covering for the operations that I had mentioned that will still continue to operate, and that's graffiti removal and also for park cleanup and park open and closure of the restroom facilities. So for an exact number, I do not have that off the top of my head, Councilmember. I apologize for that, but I could provide that to the council later on this week.
I just want to make sure that if we're not allowing a part-time employee to work, that they're compensated. If they're still going to be working and making the same amount of money that they usually make, that's fine. But because it's for COVID reasons, we shouldn't be sending anyone home with less hours of pay and not being compensated.
Okay. That there are some part-timers that will fall under what you had just said that will be paid because they're working, but there will be others that are not. So if the
So
count,
isn't there something in place already that says that we can't tell you, you can't come in because of COVID and then not pay them?
no, there's nothing already to that nature that has said that we have to pay them because of COVID.
Do you want to withdraw your second, Councilmember Guillen, or?
I do, because I feel like they need to be compensated like everybody else. It seems like the ones who really need it the most are the ones that might not be compensated.
Okay, so I need to know if there's a new second, or if there's a change to the motion.
Can we make a new motion that our part-timers also get paid if
You
they're
can
being
make a
sent
new
home?
motion and see if anybody seconds it. We have a
Okay.
motion on the floor right now, and I think what we have to do first is we have to rule on this motion. And unless we go to Cuellar Stallings and say, Cuellar Stallings, do you want your motion to stand and see if we can get a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'm looking for a second to Cuellar Stallings' motion. Is there one?
This is Vice Mayor Olmos. I have a quick question for you, John, going back to Lori's question. On some of the benefits, part-time employees do not get paid holiday pay. Is that correct or incorrect?
That is correct.
So they wouldn't have this type of benefit anyways.
Correct.
So Lori, because you're saying that it's due to COVID, they should be getting paid.
No, what I'm saying is, Brenda, we're gonna close the facility, Public Works or maintenance, and we're gonna close and tell these employees, don't come in because we wanna give full-time employees the time off paid, but you as a part-time employee, you're gonna go home and you're not gonna be compensated because of COVID. We're gonna use this time to clean and blah, blah, blah. If we're gonna close, everybody needs to be treated equal. All of the employees, because they're all being affected by it. They're all being told to stay home. And so therefore, if it doesn't affect very many part-time employees, why not do the right thing and make sure everybody gets compensated?
Well, you'd have to too, there's some other issues that come into that, which is, you're gonna have to, I would think, please help me out here, Mr. Moreno or Mr. Kavanaugh, kind of even divide that up into motions, because as part-time employees, these days also that they're taking off are some already identified paid holidays for full-time employees. So they would not be getting paid for those anyway. So you're going to have to caveat that it's not for the full length of time, because they don't get paid for those paid holidays anyway. It would be for what are the additional days, John, past the regularly scheduled paid holiday?
That would be 4 days, December 28th through December 31st.
So
And I
it's
have
an
no
addition-
problem with that, yeah.
So it's an additional 4 days, right?
Right.
No, I'm asking Mr. Moreno.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Second part of that question is, I don't know if we can move this to first of all, we'll have to see if there's a second. We can move forward, council, and approve it, but if not, I don't know that anybody wants to make that decision without knowing what the fiscal impact is. And is that something that you're prepared, if it's moved to the end of the agenda, to answer, John, or no, or do you have off the top of your head?
We could try to get that information towards the end of the agenda. We'll do our best. I just also would like to ask the city attorney a question, and that, if you don't mind, Mayor?
No, please do.
Okay, John, if we normally do not pay part-timers holiday benefits, would the council have to adopt any type of separate resolution or motion in order that allows part-timers to receive a benefit like holiday pay, paid holiday?
That would be correct, John. The city council would have to deviate from the practice of giving part-timers those type of benefits. So you would have to take separate action, and then you would have to do an appropriation for that.
Okay, so Mayor, that is something that we would have to draft. My understanding, Mr. Kavanaugh, is that it would come maybe in the form of a resolution of some kind, or maybe even
Yes.
an ordinance. Okay, a resolution.
It would have to come in the form of resolution.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, to make things maybe a little bit easier, would you like to just vote on the original agenda item that was presented to you, and then we can...
I'm trying to, but I need a second. I have
Yeah.
a motion, a standing motion from Cuellar Stallings, but I need a second.
So if I could just say something, John, to you, I'm not talking about holiday pay. If the part-timers don't get holiday pay, that's fine. I'm talking about the additional 4 days in which they are not going to be working and not getting paid when they usually do.
But that's, I understand, Councilmember, but those 4 days that we're discussing is going to be considered holiday pay for employees. So those are going to be determined to be holidays. So that's how that's established as holiday. So,
And Mr. Moreno, let me ask you this too. Is there any guarantee, or do we know, I don't know that guarantee is the right word, that because they're part-time employees, they would normally be working those 4 days anyway?
typically, yes, but in the case of the majority of our part-time employees, the answer is no. The majority,
Right, they're with the STAR program.
correct. And I like to also keep in mind too, a great number of public works employees will still be working and getting paid during those 4 days, as well
Right,
as
the
a number.
part-timers are going to back up the system.
Correct. And then there are a number of public safety part-time employees that will be working during that week as well to cover the front counter and help out in those assignments as well, if you will.
Madam Mayor, can I ask the city manager a question?
Please.
John, if that's the case, then wouldn't you have to identify for the council exactly which part-time employees would not be working during those 4 days, and then isolate them out?
For what purposes, Mr. Kavanaugh? I'm sorry.
Yeah, because Mayor Lemons asked you the question of what part-time employees would not be working anyway during those 4 days.
Oh, right. That is.
You would have to identify those employees that normally would and segregate them out, correct?
That would be correct. So if Mayor Lemons is asking for that number by the end of tonight's meeting, yes, we would have to do that, correct?
No, I'm not. I was just
Oh.
trying to determine a fact.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's do this if the rest of the council, well, no, we can't
Matt-
because the city attorney has already said it would require a resolution to go the other direction anyway.
Madam
So,
Mayor? This
who
is
am I
Vice Mayor Olmos.
speaking?
This is Vice Mayor Olmos. This is Vice Mayor
go
Olmos.
ahead.
You know what, I think looking at this, I think we're looking out for our employees, and I think it's 4 days, and I don't think, and this is just in a perception, I'm looking maybe at Dave Johnson in the sense of how many part-time employees will be working at this time, but we gotta take care of our full-time employees right now. Lori and I get your position on part-time, but I think in the instance, we have a couple weeks to get this into motion. I will go ahead and second this motion to get our full-time employees covered for these 4 days. So I'll second.
Okay, so we have a motion for approval from Councilmember Cuellar Stallings, and we have a second by Vice Mayor Olmos. May I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Of course, I want full-time employees to get compensated, so yes, I'm just looking out for the part-timers too. Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, we're going to move to item 7, the public hearing for ordinance number 1145.
Yes, Madam Mayor. This item is requesting a change to our municipal code that would require a conditional use permit that would go before the Planning Commission for warehousing and other potential uses that potentially could locate in the Clearwater East specific area. And for those of you unfamiliar with the Clearwater East specific area, this is the area that is mostly comprised of the Paramount Swap Meet property. Currently, this specific area allows for these types of uses to go in without any sort of regulation by the Planning Commission. And this happens to be very inconsistent with other similar zones throughout the city. So if the council approves this tonight, this code amendment will definitely align this Clearwater East specific area with other similar areas of town. So with that, I will now turn it over to Planning Director, Mr. John Carver, who will handle the item. John?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and council members. This item is a request for a zoning ordinance text amendment to establish regulations for indoor recreational uses and warehouse and distribution centers in the Clearwater East specific plan area. A specific plan is a regulatory tool to create regulations for a specified area. The Clearwater East specific plan was approved by the City Council in 1987, and most recently in 2019, the plan was amended to allow housing. Here is an aerial of the Clearwater East specific plan area. It's bounded by Paramount Boulevard and the railroad right-of-way on the east and west, and Somerset Boulevard and Rosecrans Avenue on the south and north. Here are some photos of the Clearwater East specific plan area. The proposed amendment to the plan would bring consistency with recent changes made in the light and heavy manufacturing zones. In 2018, the municipal code was amended to require a conditional use permit for warehouse uses. And in 2020, the code was amended to allow recreational uses in the light and heavy manufacturing zones. Here are some photos of various types of indoor recreational activities. And it's recommended that the City Council introduce Ordinance 1145. That concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Carver. Are there any questions for John at this time?
I have a question, Councilmember Quinn-Scully.
Okey-doke.
John, have you received any interest for the indoor recreational?
Yes, we have. And it would be in the industrial park that is located to the west of the public safety substation. So we received a request to do indoor recreation there. So we would need to do this amendment would need to be adopted in order to allow that request to continue.
Okay. Are you able to tell us what kind of recreational?
Yes, it was indoor soccer.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, this is a public hearing. So we're going to take testimony in the following order. We'll hear first from anyone who wants to speak in favor, then from anyone opposed. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak in favor of this item?
Madam Mayor, there have been no requests to speak in favor of this item.
Thank you. Is there anyone who wants to speak in opposition?
No requests to speak in opposition either.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, almost.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brenda.
Been moved by Almost. Do I have a second?
Quinn-Scully, second.
Okay. Moved by Almost, seconded by Cuellar Stallings to close the public hearing. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Now I need a motion on the actual item, please.
This is Councilmember Aguayo. I move the item.
May I have a second?
Councilmember
Second.
Quinn-Scully, second.
Thank you. So it's been moved by Councilmember Aguayo that we read by title only, waive further reading, and introduce ordinance number 1145 and place it on the January 12, 2021 agenda for adoption. That was seconded by Cuellar Stallings. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Next, we have the one-year review of the regulations adopted by the City Council for the home gardens.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, the next item is something that the City Council specifically requested, and that is a one-year review of the residential gardening regulations ordinance that you approved last year. So we're going to provide you a status update on this, and additionally, if the council has a desire to make some additions or maybe some modifications to this ordinance, we have some suggestions for you as well. So again, we're not proposing anything new here. We're only providing you suggestions should you want to go down that road of amending the existing ordinance with regards to gardening. So with that, I'll turn it over once again to our planning director, Mr. John Carver, who will handle this item. John?
Thank you, John, Madam Mayor, and council members. By way of background, in November of 2019, the City Council adopted an ordinance allowing for expanded gardening opportunities in residential properties. The City Council requested a one-year review to assess the possibility of expanding home gardening opportunities. Paramount has a history of supporting urban agriculture through things such as community gardens. And here are some pictures of the community garden up off of Orange on the utility easement, and also a nursery on one of the utility easements. There are multiple benefits to gardening that include access to fresh food, community resilience, encouraging healthy eating habits, combating food insecurity, and encouraging social activity. Part of the gardening ordinance adopted in 2019 allowed greenhouses to be constructed in rear yards in residential properties. The ordinance also allowed planter boxes in single-family residential zones in the side yards, and the ordinance prohibited the sale of fruits and vegetables from a home. Another part of the gardening ordinance allowed raised garden boxes in the front yard in medium-density residential zones and multiple family residential zones. The box was limited to 3 feet in height, and the plants were also limited to 3 feet. The box size was limited to 24 square feet. Maintenance was also a requirement. This is an example of what could be done in a medium-density residential zone with a 24 square foot planter box in the front yard. And this again was approved in 2019. So the next couple of slides, we'll take a look at some other options that could be added to the gardening ordinance. One option is to allow for a hoop house, which would be used for raising vegetables and fruit. As you can see in the picture, this is similar to a traditional greenhouse. Another option would be to allow gardens in more locations, such as a home's courtyard, a rooftop, or a windowsill. Another option would be to expand garden boxes into single-family residential zones and residentially zoned PDPS zones with a no-fee permit. Another possibility is to increase the gardening area from 24 square feet to a larger area. That could be based on a percentage of the front yard. Another option would be to allow gardens in the front yard without a square footage restriction and no garden box. Another change could include allowing plants to grow taller than 3 feet and removing the requirement for a planter box. We could also allow composting, which is becoming more and more popular. So, in summary, options for expanding the gardening ordinance, if the council so desired, would be to allow hoop houses, allowing gardens in courtyards and rooftops, expanding garden boxes into single-family residential zones and PDPS residential zones, also allowing gardens to expand beyond 24 square feet, allowing plants to grow taller than 3 feet in height, and encouraging composting. So it's recommended that the City Council receive and file this ordinance and/or direct staff to possible changes to the regulations. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, John. Questions?
John Carter, this is Councilmember Guillen. I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
Is it that we're going to have to specifically request the options that you provided, or could we say, I'm sure on social media and throughout the community during this pandemic that people have been doing a lot of gardening and swapping with each other. And the other thing is that it's very therapeutic. And during times of stress like the pandemic, this has all been very therapeutic for a lot of people.
Yes,
So my question is, everything you described, I think, is wonderful. And so what do you need as far as a recommendation from the council?
Yes, so we would need a consensus on the various items from a majority of the council.
Before we move into that, two things. First of all, I think we'd have to take them one by one. I'm in agreement with some, I'm not in agreement with others. But having said that, is there anyone else who'd like to ask a question or make a comment?
Mayor Lemon, this is Vice Mayor Olmos. I have a question, you guys, on the maintenance of it. I was actually reading on page 3 where it talks about maintenance, about how the property owners and residents are required to promptly harvest and remove garden vegetables. Who actually monitors this? Do we monitor that, or? Because I know sometimes people, they have great gardens and sometimes they just don't work out. And so whose responsibility is to monitor the maintenance of these?
That would be done on a code enforcement basis. So we would have to receive a complaint from, say, a neighbor about another neighbor's garden being overgrown or not harvested.
Okay, so they go out, so a neighbor complains, they go out and they look at it and they have a, conversation with them, and then it's the resident's responsibility to clean it up and move forward, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Anybody else have any questions?
I have a question, Councilmember Claire Spelling. John, when you're talking about a front yard, is it, you said only a small area, or you're allowed to have your whole front yard full of vegetables and gardens, vegetables and fruits?
You could do either. You could, right now, it's allowed in the R2 and RM zones, a planter box that's 24 square feet in size. So you could expand that to a larger area. You could expand it to the entire front yard. You could also allow that in the single-family residential zones where it's not permitted right now. So those are just a couple of different options up for discussion.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Okay, so we have the option of just receiving and filing this report and going with the regulations that already exist and moving forward, or we have the option to add some or all of the new option summaries.
So maybe we could start with increasing the current ordinance to residential. And then I think, John, we have like one box is what's currently 3 by 3 or something like that, 4 by 3.
Yes. So so right now you can do 24 square feet. So that would probably be 6 by 4.
Okay, that's in the R2 and RM, is that what you said?
That's correct. And also, I should add in residential properties in the industrial and commercial zones.
Okay, so existing areas that are already covered in the code, you're talking about increasing the size from what to what?
You could increase it from 24 square feet. We could increase that to 36 or 48 square feet, or it could be done as a percentage of the front yard.
I like the percentage, John, and I'll tell you why, because sometimes when you're doing a garden in that size of a box, they need to have the soil for the roots and the size, so they definitely need to be increased. And I think a good idea would be to do a percentage so that it doesn't take over somebody's entire front yard.
Okay,
So-
I'm gonna take this in a different direction because
Of course,
we're
Bob.
gonna have to, see which way we're gonna address these. So I'm gonna start with a roll call vote first on, do you wanna add some of these items or keep the existing ordinance in place? And then if you wanna move into the items, then I think we're gonna have to take them one by one. Okay, so let's start with, a consensus instead of a vote. Would you like to take a vote and continue with the existing ordinance, or would you like to discuss these options? Just give me a consensus, discuss, or take a motion, okay? Cuellar Stallings.
Discuss.
Okay, Aguayo.
Discuss.
Okay, Olmos
Discuss.
and Guillen.
Discuss.
Okay, so
Good.
now we're gonna have to deal with, the suggestions that were put forward to us. I think, that's probably the most efficient way to do it because, I'm sure that, I don't know how everybody else feels, but some of these I'm perfectly okay with, others I'm not. So let's move that direction. If we need to, pivot, we will. So why don't we start with the way that it's listed here in the summary with hoop houses? Okay, is there any discussion about hoop houses before we move to a vote on that? Okay, hearing no discussion. If I need a motion that, yes, I would like to add hoop houses, or no, I wouldn't, and a second so that we can vote on hoop houses.
So I'll make the motion, this is Councilmember Guillen, to allow hoop houses, but not only in the areas that are originally in the ordinance, but to expand them to residential backyards, if that's what they want to have in their backyard.
Okay, so just for clarification from Mr. Carver, are none of the gardening options currently available in residential backyards?
So a greenhouse it's allowed in the backyard in an R1, R2, RM zone, and also non-conforming residential and commercial and industrial. So the hoop house, it could be the exact same. Allow it in the backyard in R1, R2, RM, and non-conforming.
So it already exists, so that part of the motion doesn't have to be made,
For-
so that yes, now we'll also allow hoop houses, is that correct?
That's correct, to allow hoop houses, yes.
Okay,
But what about in residential areas? That's
Yeah.
what my motion included.
yeah,
Yes.
that's what he just said, that they're already
Okay,
allowed, the
perfect.
greenhouses are, so it would just be an addition. Okay, so we have a motion from Councilmember Guillen to, allow the hoop houses in the existing zones that they're allowed now. So that would be like an addition to the greenhouses. So I have a motion from Councilmember Guillen on the hoop houses. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Almost. Okay, moved by Guillen, seconded by Almost, yes on the hoop houses. Can we have a roll call? No, go ahead, roll call.
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Quer Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yeah.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, our next one would be more home locations such as courtyards, rooftops, et cetera. Now, before we move into the motion for clarity, are those currently allowed in all zones, John?
No, they are not specifically allowed.
Okay. So we could break this down by zones or just overall allowing in all zones, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So, before we go to a vote on this one, are there questions or discussion?
I have a question,
Okay,
Councilmember Crystal. Okay, I have a courtyard at my home. So I can convert my whole courtyard into a garden, correct, John?
If you add that into the ordinance this evening, you could.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Okay, my comment is this. I'm okay with courtyards as long as they're in the side or the backyards. I don't want them to be, if there's somebody has a courtyard in the front yard, I'm actually opposed to the gardening, being in the front yard. If there is available space in the back or side yard that we're allowing, that's why in the ordinance where we talked about they could come get a no-cost permit, and that would be based upon, you know, I don't have a backyard, I don't have a side yard, even though I'm in the R1. And so that we could do that, but just a flat overall approval of that, I'm opposed to that. I already have a couple in the area that are not legal right now, but they've given me enough of a look to where I don't think that they're a positive addition to front yards. They're not really well maintained and they're not attractive. But I also don't want to prohibit people who want to grow a garden and don't have other options. That's why I like the permit basis. And I would be opposed to the rooftops just for lots of reasons and don't see the necessity for it. But those are just my opinions. Anybody want to add anything before we move into this item to vote on it?
I would say that maybe we could increase the locations, but have a percentage, because I agree, I don't think they should overtake a front yard. So I think it should be a percentage of a front yard in a residential zone. If they're gonna be in a residential zone, a percentage.
Even if they have a backyard and a side yard that they could put their garden in?
Yes, because who are we to say? What if they have a backyard and a pool and a patio and there's no room?
Well, that's why they would be able to do it. That's what I'm saying. On the permit basis, if they qualify because they don't have, I agree with you, a place to put a garden. But if you just blanket it overall, then they could put it there. But if there's a reason why they can't put it in their back or side yard, then that's the free permit basis. Come in, fill out the permit and say, look, I can't because I have, like you said, my backyard's totally a pool and there's nothing else back there. Then that gives them that permit that costs them nothing. But if you just blanket it overall, then everybody can put them in their front yards, even though they have an available back and side yard to put their garden in.
That makes sense. I could live with the permit, no cost permit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't want to cut anybody out, but I don't think that they're the most attractive thing. So if you can keep it in your backyard, that's great. If you don't have options, then we have a way around that for you.
I just think though there could be a little caveat in there as far as if you don't have room in your backyard, that's fine. You could do your front yard. But even allowing a front yard, just a small percentage, because maybe I have room in my backyard, but I don't want it in my backyard. I want it in my flower bed, like one of the photos that we saw. So if it's in a percentage in a flower bed, what's the difference if we have succulents or we have some vegetation?
Well, I think they have a very different look myself, but that's all about personal taste, right? So we may have to look at the difference in allowable space between front and backyard. So we'll come to that next. Do we want to hold the courtyards and the rooftops separately? I think that they're two very different things, guys.
This is Councilmember Aguayo. The rooftop, I really think should actually be removed from this. Just again, there's a lot of different factors that to consider with rooftops. I'm not comfortable with the rooftops at all. Everything else, I pretty much am, especially because once we go through these, we have an idea of how it's going to be monitored. Because I mean, even a garden, with flowers, if it's not maintained, it still takes away from the look. So,
Councilmember, this is Councilmember Crescelli. Peggy,
yes.
Getting back to the front yards, I did have a previous neighbor next door, and before he deceased, he had the full yard, a front yard full of fruit trees just before it was allowed, and it wasn't well maintained. And I'm not in favor of that. I'm not in favor for myself personally, for my courtyard. I would not grow vegetables or fruits in my courtyard. I prefer, pretty flowers and some vegetation, but, I'm not
Well, I
afraid.
think right now, kind of, we have a consensus, correct me if I'm wrong, that, for the front yard, if the courtyard's in the front yard, again, it would be on a permit basis. Anything in the residential area would be on a permit basis where they would have to show they have nowhere else to put it.
Yes,
So, it would be limited anyway, only to those who do not have any backyard space. And I think that's gonna be very few in residential neighborhoods, single-family residential neighborhoods. I think that's not gonna be many people who have no location back or side to put it. But, and they would have to get a special permit to be able to do that, but it would be a no-cost permit. And I am in agreement with Councilmember Aguayo on the rooftops. I just would like to remove it totally. But, so maybe we'll go there before we vote on courtyards. Is there anybody, let's just do it this way, who's in favor of the rooftops and wants to leave it? Okay, so let's eliminate rooftops. We're gonna go to courtyards, allowing, them to have them in courtyards in the back, if the courtyard exists in the backyard. I don't know if anybody has a side courtyard. And then if the courtyard's in the front, it would require the permit. Do I have all of those logistics correct, Mr. Carver?
Yes, you do.
Okay, so courtyards, with those limitations, do we have a motion to that effect?
Well, I would make the motion saying that, I move to allow courtyards. Aesthetics are a personal,
the motion is to allow courtyards, except for if they're in the front yard, it would be by the permit basis.
People aren't gonna do it without getting a permit anyway. So, I mean, you're
Well, but
asking
that
for them
puts
to
them
go
in
get a
direct
permit.
violation.
I mean, people are doing it now,
I know, I'm just saying that, it's still a direct violation, which makes it much easier to have them remove it than if you don't have it anyway. People do lots
It's
of things that are.
vegetable. I'm just not getting the digging in the hills of this. It's about sustainability, it's about vegetables, it's about
I
neighbor
understand that.
gardening.
I understand that, and that's why we're making the exception that if they don't have any place else to put it, then they can get a permit to do it.
But maybe they want it in their front yard, even if they have room in the backyard. We
Well,
don't
there's
live
a
in
lot of
HOAs. We don't
I don't
live in an
disagree with you.
HOA.
You know what, I'm so many variances here to discuss, staff, that maybe we should table this and come up with a clearer objective from all the council members. Taking these one by one and everybody's feedback, maybe we could come to a better consensus if you spent some more time exploring the options. How do you guys feel about that?
I definitely second that. There's too much here to go by each one and
Yeah.
kind of determine. I need to research, I need to look, I need to be able to look at residential housing, how they do their gardening. I can't make any motions on these tonight, Peggy, sorry.
No, I'm okay with that. I think that there's so much and so many individual opinions. It might just be helpful for us to talk to one another, to share our opinions and our experiences with staff, and then maybe we can come back with something more concise after they go to us individually and get some ideas of what we're comfortable with and not comfortable with. So I'm going to, can I consider that a motion from you to table this item, Vice Mayor Olmos?
Yes, please.
Okay, is there a second for that?
I'll second.
Yes, second.
Okay, so I have a motion from Vice Mayor Olmos and a second from Clara Stallings to table this item. Staff to go back and with the direction that's been given and see if we can come back with something more, concise and, that, you've talked with us all about, and maybe we can come up with concessions on everybody's part and come up with something workable. Is that clear direction for you?
Yes, it is.
Okay, can I have a roll call vote then?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen, Councilmember Quer,
Yeah, it was on mute. I have it on mute, so yes.
Councilmember Quer Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to Youth Sports League Scholarship Program.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Yes, this next item does involve youth sports. With the passage of the budget back in June, the City Council has already formally adopted a scholarship fund. And the scholarship fund are for families who cannot afford to pay the fees that are associated with youth league sports participation. These funds were previously used as an annual grant that the city gave to each of the leagues. So before you tonight are just the parameters of the scholarship fund, which is actually called the Every Child Plays Scholarship Program. And I want to note that this was approved by a 5-0 vote of the Parks and Rec Commission last month. With that, I'll turn it over to our Community Services and Recreation Director, Mr. David Johnson, who will walk us through the item. Dave?
Thank you, John. Mayor and council members. So again, this is actually part of the program partner agreement that council approved in October 2020 and also, as John mentioned, through the budget process. It is called the Every Child Play Scholarship Program because, again, what we're looking to do here is to remove some of the financial burden that some families will have in participating in these sports. It is currently funded in the FY21 budget at $15,000, which is the partial amount. The full amount will go into full effect in FY22 at $30,000. Now, again, this is an attempt to provide financial assistance to Paramount residents, kids and students that go to Paramount Unified Schools. It is for recreation youth leagues only. So it does not apply to club, travel ball, or all-stars. This was a topic that was brought up before the Parks and Recreation Commission, and as John mentioned, it was a 5-0 vote to keep it restricted to recreation seasons only. For us, a recreation season are those factors that are shown there. Again, every child has equal playing time. There's open registration, so it's not, you don't get to choose which players you want and recruit just the players you want. It's open to the entire community, and the teams are developed on an equal, fair basis. So the scholarship program would be run and administered by the Recreation Department. Again, it would provide direct support to families that are unable to afford the full cost of participating in these sports. The checks themselves would actually be made out to the league in which they're joining, so it does provide indirect support to those leagues. There is a maximum of $10,000 that any league could gain through these applications for scholarship support. The process would be fairly simple. We will, if council approves this tonight, once these leagues are able to start up again, we will begin marketing the scholarship program. We'll ask the leagues to assist us with that as well. The leagues, though, are going to have to provide us a full cost of their league fees. So it did come up at a prior council meeting about the scholarship program that some leagues may be charging fees for umpires per game. We would then request that information from each league as how they actually structure that. If those league fee or those umpire fees are to be paid separately out of their general league fees, we would need to know that because we would incorporate that into the scholarship. So as soon as we get that information out there, there's an application process to go through. Families will apply. Our goal is to have a decision for them in 1 to 2 weeks, and then we'll invite the families to come pick up the check. And again, the check would be made out to the league. The family would then go to the league with our check and the difference that they would be paying, and they would be able to join that league. In terms of eligibility, they must show obviously that they're a resident of Paramount or have a child that goes to a PUSD school. They have to show a child's birth certificate because the program is for children 17 years of age or younger, and they need to provide proof of income. That proof of income would come in play here on our sliding scale. This shows the family size by number of persons in the family and their income. That would define them as either extremely low income, very low income, or low income. So the range of support that we're proposing tonight would be 30 to 50% of league fees. If you're defined as an extremely low income family, we're looking at a 50% scholarship for league fees. Very low income would be at 40, and low income would be at 30. Now there will be special circumstances that may pop up. we were, in this, I'm going to suggest that the recreation director retains some discretion here. An example would be, if they have income showing that they made X amount of dollars last year, but they both lost their job, both family members, both mother and father, or one family member, and now those circumstances have changed, I have the discretion to step in and say, okay, we'll award a scholarship. We'll deal with families. I mean, there may be cases where families still can't afford even the 50% based upon circumstances in their family. We'll address those, and we can make some adjustments as needed. Oops. I don't have it in slide. And that concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Are there questions?
I have a question. This is Councilmember Aguayo. Looking at the requirements, if the scholarships are, for Paramount residents and Paramount Unified students, can something from the school that's an official document, signed, not a transcript, well, it could be a transcript, but at the schools, at the elementary schools, they can get a printout and just, if it's signed by the principal or assistant principal and sealed. Would that work? Because I know it says 2 of the following, but I'm thinking, there may be people that don't have, for whatever reason, a utility bill under their name. And we are asking for 2, and I get that, that's pretty standard. But what if it's something from the schools? And again, just specifically signed by, again, a principal, assistant principal, or somebody there, and it's sealed. Would that work?
Yes, Councilmember Aguayo. In those cases, we come across this frequently. So they can get something from the school that shows that they're a POSD student that's currently attending, and then we'll work with families to find that other form of identification. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that it is stated in there somewhere, because I don't want families to feel that they don't have this paperwork and then it turns them away from participating. So thank you.
Sure.
Anyone else?
I have a question, David. You mentioned that extremely low income, the scholarship only pays 50%, correct?
That's correct.
And you mentioned that the family is not able to afford the other 50%. You'll be able to work with them, correct?
We will make every effort to make sure that family and that child is able to participate. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much. I greatly appreciate that.
Anyone else? Can I have a motion?
So moved. Second by Aguayo.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear who made the motion.
Cuellar Stallings.
Okay, moved by Cuellar Stallings that we approve the item, and seconded by Councilmember Aguayo. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Quer Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Next is authorization for professional services for continued work on a water rate study.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For months now, we've been working with a consultant on a water rate fee study. Our water rate fee structure is very antiquated and it's extremely complex, and actually in some cases we're researching it, but it could be inequitable for some ratepayers when compared to other ratepayers, and we're still analyzing that last point there. I want to make that clear. Additionally, we've been operating the water fund in a deficit, using our water fund reserves to cover the deficit each year. The report is almost complete, and we will provide a comprehensive presentation to the City Council once it's done. But tonight we're asking for additional funds to continue our work with the consultant to get this study across the finish line. This work will include an analysis of a multi-year phased-in water rate increase. So with that, I will turn it over to our Finance Director, Ms. Karina Liu, who will handle the item. Karina?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the council, the item before you is an authorization to complete a water rate study in an amount not to exceed $14,990. Next slide. As you know, Paramount Water Utility is committed to providing safe, reliable, and affordable water to more than 55,000 residents plus the businesses. The city operates the water operations through the Water Enterprise Fund. This is entirely independent from the city's finances. A couple years back, the city retained the services of Bartell Wells Associates to conduct a comprehensive water rate study to develop updated water rates. While city water rates have always been one of the lowest in the region, the Water Enterprise Fund had been operating in deficits for many years. In addition, the existing water rate structure, like John mentioned, is antiquated and it is complicated to maintain. So the purpose of the rate study is to streamline the water rates, in addition to addressing the fund's structural deficits and capital improvement needs. Next slide. Through the study, the following have been accomplished. First, a simplified rate structure that is in compliance of Proposition 218 has been set. So what is Proposition 218? In general, Prop 218 ensures that all taxes on property owners are subject to voter approval. Now, Proposition 218 also impacts fees collected through monthly bills to property owners, such as those for water service. In order to comply with Prop 218, water rates have to be fair and equitable, and the amount of fee may not exceed the actual cost of providing the service. Also, the study includes a 5-year projection of the financials and projections of the fund balance to make sure that we have an adequate level of fund reserve to meet the future debt service obligations, also to meet the operating and capital needs in the future. Next. As part of this study and ensuring compliance with Prop 218, we have found that certain accounts are impacting more than others. Some may experience a higher rate increase while others are not. So we feel that further analysis on financial impacts to certain ratepayers are needed. A phasing approach over a 5-year period is preferred to minimize the potential financial impact. While all being considered, rates still need to be fair and equitable. They are set based on the cost of providing the service in order to comply with Prop 218. Next. A purchasing policy allows the city manager or his designees to retain professional services up to $40,000. As of today, $39,800 has been spent. Further analysis will cost about $15,000, which will exceed the $40,000 limit. Therefore, we're asking for authorization to complete the analysis. Also want to point out that $20,000 has been budgeted and approved in the current year's budget. Next. With that, it's recommended the City Council authorize expenses for professional services with Bartell Wells Associates in an amount not to exceed $14,990. This wraps up my report. I will be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Karina. Questions or discussion on the item?
Madam Mayor, I have a question. This is Vice Mayor Olmos. Karina, I noticed on the report it says that this company has been retained a couple years ago to conduct a study, a comprehensive study. So have they been working on this since 2 years ago, this study? Can you confirm that?
Yes, we've been working on it on and off for about 2 years.
So they've been working on the study off and off for 2 years, and then they're asking for additional funds. And I'm sorry, did it say how long it will take for them to finish the study?
Yeah, normally with other water agencies, they're done, because once they have completed the study, they have redo the rate structures, they will go ahead and roll it out and, do all the Prop 218 notices and roll it out. For Paramount, we are very sensitive to how we increase our rates. As you know, we always maintain one of the lowest in the region. The last rate increase was back in 2016. We're very sensitive of increasing rates. And when we look at the actual rates that was proposed, we feel that it may be a little too much, too fast to implement. So we actually working with our consultant, which is unusual, to to do a phasing approach, to do it in an incremental level to slowly adjust us to comply with Prop 218. So this was not anticipated when we first started with the project, but as we go along and we find out more information, we feel that we need to take in a more phased-in approach.
And to add what, and I'm sorry, Madam Mayor, and to add to what Ms. Luce said, Vice Mayor Olmos, we also put a hold on this study once COVID broke out because there was no way we were going to bring any types of water rate proposals to the council to increase during that time. Karina, though, in more direct answer to Vice Mayor Olmos's question, how many more weeks, months, or whatever do you think would you estimate it would take to complete the report and a presentation to be put forth by the council?
Thank you, John. So it'll take another 6 months or so, and it should be completed.
Karina or John, piggybacking on Vice Mayor Olmos's question, what was entailed in this study that has taken so long?
Karina, you want to answer that?
Sure. Our water rate schedule, it turns out, is very different from all the other agencies. This was developed, I've been here 20-some years. This was probably developed more than 30 years ago. With Prop 218, there's certain things that we have to comply, and now as we do this study, we just find out we're really out of whack, and to bring us in par with Prop 218, it's just taking a lot more analysis and time to do it right, and so it was taking longer. And also we have some personnel changes in the past. In addition to COVID, we kind of put this on pause at the time. We also have personnel changes in Public Works Department with the director's change, and so that has also interrupted the study at the time, so it's taking longer than expected.
So it sounds like the bottom line answer is just there's been multi-reasons in changes in personnel, COVID, that it's been pushed to the back burner. So it's not like they've been working on this for 2 solid years. There have been lapses when the actual work was taking place.
Yes, that is correct.
Correct.
Okay. Other questions? If there are none, can we have a motion on the item?
So moved, almost. Second, Aguayo.
Moved by Vice Mayor Olmos and seconded by Councilmember Aguayo that we authorize expenses for professional services in an amount not to exceed $14,990 with the Bartle Wells and Associates. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
No.
Councilmember Quer Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, the next is a receive and file item for the 2020 CAPA report.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, we recently closed the books on fiscal year 2020 with a detailed audit, as is done every year. Tonight, we're presenting you with the final report detailing how fiscal year 2020 turned out for us. And as you're about to hear, all things considered, FY 2020 ended up being okay for us financially. So with that, I will turn it over to our Finance Director once again, Ms. Karina Liu, who will walk you through the item. Karina?
Thank you, John. Good evening again, Madam Mayor and members of the Council. The item before you is the CAFR, which is the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report for fiscal year 2020. Next. This is our new cover for our latest CAFR, featuring al fresco outdoor dining in Paramount. Next. As you know, other than the budget, the year-end report is one of the major duties that the Finance Department handles every year. This report captures the finances for the entire city, including waterfront and successor agencies. The CAFR is a great tool to compare actuals with the budgets, which our auditors look at them very closely during the audit to ensure the year-end numbers are matching up with what the council had intended at budget time. And leading up to the completion of the CAFR, we also check for new accounting standards that we need to comply. Next. addition to the numbers, our independent auditors, Eide Bailey, on an annual basis, they also examine our internal controls and to make sure that our financial is presented fairly in all material matters. As we have in the past, we are very happy to report that we have received a clean opinion from our audit firm, once again for fiscal year 20. This will allow us to apply for the National GFOA Award next year. Next. We always follow the industry best practices. We have guidelines in place to keep us in check, including policies and procedures, separation of duties, approvals, and review processes. We also do self-evaluation in an effort to continue strengthening our internal controls in response to the environmental, technological, or regulatory changes. As you know, having a sound internal control system is critical in any operation. It is a great tool for effective fraud prevention. Given what's happening on the news related to scandals from other government agencies, since fiscal year 17, we initiated a separate audit called Agreed Upon Procedures, AUP, to review in detail in certain areas of our operations. The AUP is totally optional and voluntary. Even though it takes much longer to complete an audit, this is initiated to make sure we're in the right track. Also, we look to our auditors to give guidance and independent review on certain areas of our operations. As a result, in the past few years, all electronic transactions, such as wires, were examined. Cash disbursements in accounts payable, including vendor setup, were reviewed in greater length. In addition, another AUP was done to review our human resources and payroll processes. We're very happy to report that there was no concern found. I don't mean to say we're perfect. Given the small staff that we have, we do try our best to have controls and separation of duties. And we do not plan to stop here. Finance and all departments are committed to continuing meeting the high standards and maintaining the integrity of our operations. Due to COVID, the AUP this year has been postponed to January of 2021, and we'll keep you informed. Next, we'll review financial data. First is city revenues in three major fund categories. The biggest revenue source is the general fund, about $27.7 million total. This is the fund where the council has the most discretion in spending, and it comprises of various sources. Consistently, the most significant source of income is sales tax, followed by motor vehicle license fees, utility users tax, franchise fees, and property tax. In the restricted funds category, as its name stated, these can only be used for specific purposes. Some of our major restricted funds are CDBG Home Funds, Transportation Funds, and another big grant is the STAR After School Program. The amount we receive changes from year to year. Overall, in fiscal year 2020, we received about $10 million in grants. Lastly, our water fund, the total revenue is about $7.7 million, about 2% decrease in total revenues when compared to last year. The decrease is related to COVID. Next. Here's our revenue trend for the past years. The light blue bar represents the general fund, and the red bar represents the restricted funds. In fiscal year 2020, we had about $37.7 million total in general fund and restricted funds combined. General fund is about $27.8 million. It has a slight decrease when compared to previous years due to COVID-19. And I will go over a little bit more detail in the following slide. In general, sales tax is the biggest revenue source, followed by motor vehicle license fees. On the restricted fund category, we receive about $10 million total in the year. That is slightly higher than the previous year. Next. The next slide here shows the COVID-19 impact in all general fund revenue categories. As you can see, other than motor vehicle license fees, revenues dropped across the board, including taxes, licenses, permits, fines, citations, investments, charges for services, and other categories. The decrease about $650,000 total, while there is also an increase in motor vehicle license fees about $560,000. So overall, there is a decrease of only about $90,000 in a year. Now, while there's still a decrease when comparing to prior years in terms of revenue, honestly, the actuals and revenues come in much higher than what we have projected using a very conservative approach. So we are very pleased with this number. Next. After looking at revenues, this is the expenditures in a 10 years history. This reflects the normal operating expenses as well as the use of funds from prior year or one-time grants. In fiscal year 20, we expended approximately $36.4 million when all funds combined. Since the Saver at Home order took effect in March, we realized some operational savings while also paying for unexpected expenditures for COVID-19 mitigation. Next. Here, this pie chart shows you among our operating departments. We expended close to $33 million in a year. As you can see, the largest department is public safety, followed by public works. Next. This is another pie chart for fiscal improvements, our capital improvement projects. Prior to fiscal year 2012, our former redevelopment agency funded significant projects in the past, and the $5 to $6 million annual funding has vanished since the dissolution of the redevelopment agency. So using the general fund and other restricted sources has been the norm to pay for infrastructure improvements since 2012. Overall, in fiscal year 2020, we expended close to $4 million on capital improvements. And as we do every year, we continue improving the streets, sidewalks, and maintenance and improvements at City Park and facilities. Next. John mentioned that we're doing pretty good in fiscal year 2020. So every year during closing, we look for ways to replenish reserve, and we're very happy that we'll once again have the ability to do that. In fiscal year 2020, because of savings in expenditures and also unexpected increase in revenues when compared to the budget, there is a $646,000 surplus, which we could use to increase some reserves. First, we're recommending an increase to the Capital Improvement Project Fund. Since we've lost the redevelopment agency fund, this capital improvement fund is crucial to pay for capital needs every year. Next, we would like to establish a new reserve called COVID-19. The intent of this COVID-19 reserve is to support operations in the event that revenues fall short of our estimates. This is not a reserve we use for COVID-19 mitigation programs, such as rental or business assistance grants. We have other funding sources, such as CDBG or CARES Act, funding designated for COVID mitigation purposes. Next. Here is a chart to show you the reserves that we have set up within the general fund, where you can see the beginning and ending balances. At the end of the year, as you can see, we didn't use any reserve in PERS, which is our pension. We didn't use any of the unassigned fund reserve in general fund. But with this surplus that we have, we're recommending an increase of $323,000 in the CIP reserve. It will go up from $1.7 million to about $2 million. Also setting up a new reserve called COVID-19 with a balance of $323,000. Next. I want to focus a little bit on our unassigned fund balance in the general fund. This is a 10-year trend. As you can see, this is money that we have saved up in the bank, and we barely really have used it in the past. Having worked here for so long, I can see the council is committed to keeping this reserve at a healthy level. As you can see, we really didn't use it, not even during the Great Recession, nor when we lost redevelopment. However, should a need arises in the future, such as a catastrophic economic downturn, this reserve will come in handy. It is our goal to continue building this up. As of fiscal year 20, we have close to $13 million. Next. Lastly, for water fund, due to loss of revenues related to COVID-19, also expenses related to the construction of a new well and the debt service payments that we need to make, we're posting a deficit of $448,000 in fiscal year 20. As you know, we're currently building a new well, number 16. Once it's up and running, we anticipate the production costs will reduce, which will help with the bottom line. Also, we talked about a water rate study earlier. This should address the long-range financial needs for the fund. Wanted to point out we continue to maintain one of the lowest rates in the region. Fund balance is currently at $3.6 million. which has been accumulated many years ago, and this will allow us to stay afloat in the meantime. Next. With that, this wraps up my presentation. It's recommended City Council receive and file the fiscal year 2020 financial report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions? Okay, hearing none, the report has been received and filed. We'll move on to item 9, the draft of the 2021 legislative platform.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council members. Earlier this year, the City Council directed us to develop a legislative platform. Such a platform would establish the city's position when it comes to supporting or opposing legislation. We've developed a draft of this platform that we're going to show you tonight, and it covers all the policies and values of the City Council with one major addition that was not mentioned in the original report, and Andrew will cover that one. So if you are comfortable with this platform and give us the thumbs up on it, we'll go and return to the next council meeting with a resolution which will formally adopt this platform for the 2021 legislative year. And with that, I'll turn it over to Andrew, who will walk us through the item. Andrew?
Great. Thank you, John. Good evening again, Mayor and members of the City Council. Yes, as John mentioned, at its meeting on August 4th, the City Council received a report on implementing an annual legislative platform, which would essentially establish guidelines for staff when the city receives requests from partner agencies or organizations to either support or oppose legislation. At its next meeting, or a subsequent meeting, the City Council approved the implementation of a legislative platform, which would take effect on January 1st, 2021. So just a quick recap of how we got to this point. Hopefully that'll add a little bit of context for you. City Council instructed staff to establish a process that would essentially streamline the way we develop positions as a city on legislative matters that would ultimately reflect the principles and objectives held by the collective City Council. Such a platform would share the goals of protecting the city's position on legislation while establishing a predetermined and unified position on a range of issues so that the city can quickly and efficiently respond to these types of requests when they come in. A legislative platform would also allow the City Council to tailor its position on legislation based on issues it feels are important to the entire city, effectively streamlining the approval process. This is helpful when taking a position on legislation that is time sensitive. And if you recall at our last meeting, I kind of went over this. It looks like a pretty busy slide here, but it discusses what the process would be that the City Council approved at the last meeting when we discussed implementation. So if I can draw your eyes to the far top left picture, that's where the process would essentially start, which is what we're doing this evening. You would receive a draft platform at a public meeting that would come to you every 6 months, at least for the indefinite period of time, where you would discuss and advise staff on any changes or any reviewed items that you'd like to make to the platform. Once consensus is achieved after this evening, we'll take your comments and input and include them into the legislative platform, which would basically complete the input and inclusion process of this protocol. Once we implement it on January 1st, if it's approved this evening, moving forward, when we receive a request from a partner organization to take a position on a legislative matter, we'll use this document as our guiding light, our guiding beacon, so to speak. So if that position, if that piece of legislation aligns with the priorities established in this document, we'll move forward with it, meaning that we'll draft a letter, send it to the mayor for her signature or his or her signature, and then a copy of the final letter would be shared with all the City Council members. If it is not, if it does not align with our legislative platform or is a highly controversial item, we'll bring it back to the City Council before you in a public meeting to take a position on it publicly. As you can see, this last part of the process does provide an efficient way to streamline these requests, as well as provides clear direction for staff. So in the draft legislative platform, we it's included in your packet this evening. We wanted to kind of start off and kind of provide a preface that provides guiding principles. In the document, we cover 4 guiding principles, one of which is to preserve local control, promote fiscal stability, promote economic development, and promote and advocate for funding opportunities. The goals outlined in the draft 2021 platform before you this evening advocate for the city's best interests at the federal, state, and local levels. It provides transparency on legislative issues that can have potential impact to the city. It encourages participation in regional matters that protect the health and welfare of our city. And it seeks grant and funding assistance for city projects, services, and programs to enhance services for the community. The different areas of focus are outlined here. There's one here that I'll highlight that is not included in the draft legislative platform before you this evening. It is something that since we've published this and sent you these documents, we felt like we needed to add. That's truly a very important issue to the city. So as I go through these, I'll call that one out. But Parks and Recreation is one area of focus that we included. Public Works, Solid Waste, and what is currently in your packet this evening, it's titled Water Supply. We're going to go ahead and change that to another area of focus that we want to call environmental sustainability. It will incorporate certainly water issues. However, we wanted to elaborate on that a little bit more to include more general advocacy for environmental sustainability that promotes a healthy environment for our community. Moving on, public safety, finance, HR, economic development, housing and land use issues, and regional governance are other areas of focus included in the draft legislative platform this evening. So at this point, as I wrap up, this is the part where we want to solicit for your input and feedback. So the final legislative platform will incorporate your feedback. It will take effect on January 1st, 2021. And at your direction, the legislative platform will be reviewed again on June 2021. A resolution will be brought back to you at the next council meeting scheduled for January 12th, 2021, which would formally adopt the changes we make tonight and the platform. So with that, it's recommended that the City Council review the 2021 legislative platform, provide us any input, and approve for implementation on January 1st. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Andrew. Questions, comments?
Andrew, this is Councilmember Guillen. Can you go back over what you added? So you're adding that last slide there. And specifically what? I don't really understand what you're adding there. Specifically, the staff will deal with all these issues instead of putting it before council, part of the platform?
So I think you're referring to the areas of focus that are included. Yes. So all of the areas of focus that I listed are currently in the document you have before you this evening. That was what was in the draft. The only thing that has changed that we have to add more elements on is the bullet on environmental sustainability. Currently in your draft packet, it's called water supply, and it only deals with water issues. We want to expand on that to do more environmental sustainability initiatives and support those.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
Hey, Andrew, I have one question for you. So just on the wording, I'm looking at number 2, to promote fiscal stability. So I know sometimes there's already measures in place that we may oppose or support, but what if there's an initiative that's really not a measure, but just an initiative? Would that be worded differently?
I think you're referring to like a ballot measure, like a Prop A or Prop C or something like that from the state or the county?
Well, I mean, it's something maybe that's not in legislative factor yet. It may just be an initiative that cities are getting together to push this initiative. I read under funding opportunities, you have it as support and opportunities. which could be the word for initiatives, but when it comes down to like support legislation or regulation, what if it's just an initiative? Again, a bunch of cities getting together to push something through to their assembly member.
Yeah, that's a good question, Vice Mayor. I think that, as you go through the legislative platform, we talk a lot about, the purpose, our guiding principles. For instance, in that specific, promote fiscal stability, the number 2, it details 3 different bullet points on that elaborate on what that is. And I apologize, this slide right here, that it's kind of a synopsis of the titles, but it does dive in a little bit deeper. I think the intent of this document is to be able to use these details, the way we've crafted what we would essentially consider what is promoting fiscal stability based on the principles that the City Council shares, is what would guide us in supporting those types of letters of support for an initiative that isn't necessarily a piece of legislation.
That's fair.
So this would be the time if in reviewing this document, there were any legislative platforms or areas, if you don't want to call it a legislative platform, that, are deeply valued by you, that as those come in from legislators or from other cities looking for support, and those letters are drafted by the staff according to this platform as to whether they're just standard, yes, this is the city's platform, this falls within it. So if there's something missing here, or if there's something included that you don't think that we should be supportive of or be part of, now is the time for you to speak. Again, they mentioned that we'll review this again. I think the date was June, so you'll have some time to work with it and see if it meets your individual thoughts and aspirations. But now is the time to, if you have those comments, to add them and give them to staff.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, this just gives the authority to write the letter, but if something new comes up that, is of some type of importance to any individual, and we have time to talk to staff about it first and then figure out how to approach it. I thought this was initially put into place because of the quick turnaround time that sometimes these letters need to be signed. I didn't think it was a be-all to end-all.
It absolutely
is
now. Absolutely not a be-all, end-all, but the point being that let's say some piece of legislation came down the pike that maybe you weren't aware of, or I wasn't aware of, or any council member, and it's not part of the platform, then it might be overlooked by staff too. So you can add those things as we go along and things evolve, but that's all I'm saying. This is their guideline. So if there's anything in the guideline that you still, I would like this addressed in the guidelines. I already know that this is important to me, and you left it out. Or I don't want to be part of this. That's all I'm saying, not that it's not an ever-evolving document. Okay, so hearing none, if there's no other questions or anything that you want to add or remove from this basic platform, then we'll entertain a motion.
So moved, almost.
Do I have a second on the platform?
Second, Claire Stallings.
Moved by Vice Mayor Olmos and seconded by Claire Stallings that we approve the draft for the implementation of the January 1st, 2021 legislative platform. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Quer Stallings?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Next is resolution number 20032.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council. This next item involves the adoption of a personnel manual, which would clearly cover rules and regulations for our organization. we've actually had employee rules and regulations in place for decades now. However, they're put together in a very non-traditional and much less comprehensive format. So this change before you tonight will bring us more in line with our municipal code and will also keep us consistent with personnel industry standards. So with that, I'll turn it back over to our Assistant City Manager, Mr. Andrew Villalpando, who will go over this item. Andrew?
Thank you, John. Again, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, as required by the Paramount Municipal Code, the City Council adopted a personnel resolution decades ago. This document, which has been in place for many years, formally describes the policies, procedures, and conduct expected of an employee of the city. Over the years, the document would be brought before the City Council to approve ministerial changes to personnel laws and regulations. Up to this point, only minor changes have been primarily made to the resolution. Consequently, significant updates are needed to bring the city's policies up to date with current personnel regulations and standards. In collaboration with our legal counsel, so both our city attorney and our outside legal personnel counsel, management, and general employees, we've updated our policy into what we're referring to as a personnel manual. The personnel manual was crafted using the current personnel policy resolution as a starting point, and that truly is the foundation of what we built on, and builds in current personnel regulations, laws, and standards. In a high-level overview, which is here on this slide, it gives you a little bit of insight into what's included and what sorts of updates were made. We're going to go a little bit deeper into detail in the next slides. But to give you just an overall perspective of the changes and updates that were made to this 40 to 50-year-old document, is we added things like ethics, we added a policy about our technology and equipment, and other ministerial additions as well. We cleaned up and reorganized sections for clarity and relevance. We enhanced sections by adding elements like catastrophic leave and the telework policy. This is also known as working from home. There are no substantial changes to any elements, particularly monetary elements like benefits, the disciplinary process, or appeals. None of those sections have changed, and they remain untouched from the original personnel resolution that was approved by the City Council in 2019. When moving forward, so regarding any future changes, we wanted to clarify something that was particularly what is an industry standard and is consistent with our municipal code, which is administrative changes may be taken by the city manager, subject to review by the city attorney. However, any changes that would impact the budget, such as compensation and most benefits, not all, but most benefits, anything that would have some economic impact to our budget will still continue to go to the City Council for approval, which is, again, as I mentioned, both of these very important updates are industry standard for municipalities. So I'm going to go ahead and give it up to introduce to you our HR manager, Jonathan Massanat, to take over on and provide you a little bit of insight of what each section includes. So Jonathan.
Thank you, Andrew. Good evening. The proposed personnel manual is organized in three major sections that are overarching. The first one is the introductory section. This first section outlines basic procedures and describes existing state and federal personnel laws. The key changes that were made include the description of the process by which the city manager amends the personnel manual. As previously stated, changes to budgetary items like compensation and authorized position listings will continue to go to the City Council for approval. And as always, any changes will still be reviewed by the city attorney. We have also outlined basic procedures and employment laws. So there will be things as like Equal Opportunity Commission, a reporting process on complaints of harassment, things of this nature. And the second section is the biggest section of the document. Contains most of the content that's very near and dear to the employees, which is information on benefits, leaves, discipline, and employee conduct. There have once again been no changes to compensation and causes for discipline, to name a few. Some of the key enhancements include the clarification of probation for promotions, policy on nepotism, clarification on the performance evaluation process, updates to procedures for various leaves. It adds catastrophic leave and telework and a telework policy. And it includes numerous other changes that inscribe existing practices into writing and other clarifying content. The final section describes professional conduct in the workplace, containing information on ethics, substance use, vehicle and device usage, and more. Specifically, it adds a technology policy, once again, the ethics policy, and it also expands on the vehicle policy, just to name a few. So we wanted to engage the employees to get their input, to see how they perceived the information, how they received it, if there was any constructive feedback, anything that could help us, help us and help them do their jobs better that we may have not considered. So employees were provided two primary options to submit feedback. We created an internal web page for online submissions that employees can submit through the web page. And then we also held office hours at the Yard substation at City Hall, where we were present and we met with whoever showed up. Few responses were received from a few employees that were very helpful and constructive and predominantly implemented into the proposed manual before you. Additionally, a draft was sent to the Teamsters, the city's only union, for their review. No response has been received at this point in time. So it is recommended the City Council adopt Resolution 2032, and we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Vice Mayor,
Jonathan, go ahead.
Yeah, just sorry. Really quick question. Jonathan, I'm reading on your next step. So how is this actually not implemented, but how is it educated to your staff about the new changes? Do they get like a written manual, or how is it? How are they educated on this?
Vice Mayor Ramos, this is Andrew. I'll take that question. Yeah, so we sent a memorandum out about over a month ago announcing the updates and the new personnel manual. That was when we solicited for their input and advice. So for about 5 weeks now, the employees have both a generic email. We also had it posted in our break rooms at all the facilities. So we've had like as Jonathan mentioned, we had some pretty good feedback from some employees. Moving forward, next steps, as you mentioned, I think if adopted this evening by resolution, we'll start messaging to employees. I envision this being able to be sent out in the next few days with a memo to all employees announcing the updates. And of course, with the adoption of the resolution this evening, it would repeal the previous outdated resolution policy. So to in short answer your question is we would send out messaging in different variations, whether by email and also posting in break rooms.
Perfect. Thank you, Andrew.
This is Councilmember Gian. I don't know who can best answer this question, but was it brought forward by any employee in the last few weeks about being paid, being paid out for sick time or vacation time when employees or staff uses sick time, but then it's not on the books or something like that? Was that addressed? And did anything about employees being paid out for their sick time? Was anything about that changed? I guess so. It's a two-pronged question. One, did anybody come forward with those type of questions? And two, was anything changed about that?
This is Andrew. I don't have any recollection or any information that any such question was received by our office related to that. We do have a section on sick leave and how what our policy is for that in this personnel manual.
So was anything changed from the old to this one?
I'm looking over at our HR manager, Jonathan, and I believe no. The answer is no.
No, the only update which we had in place, which I believe we did a year ago, was upon retirement. So every year, employees can, if they meet certain hours, they can buy back some of their sick leave at 50% of their pay rate. We did have something in place that if they retire within 30 days of December, which is when they would usually buy that back, that they would get 100% upon retirement, because they do get 100% upon retirement as is, but instead of making them buy back those excess hours in December at a 50% rate, they would now be able to cash those out at a full rate. So that was really the only change that was made to sick leave in terms of payout. Vacation, it remains the same. Vacation gets paid out at 100% upon separation, but sick leave is the only one that gets paid out at retirement, unless you do the buyback.
And as Jonathan mentioned, that was a change that was made in the previous personnel resolution.
Okay, but somebody threw a question at me. If I'm the assistant director and I take off, I use sick time or family vacation time or whatever it is because my kid has been sick for 3 weeks. But then when it comes to looking at the time on the books, their time is still there. That was the concern. They never used those 3 weeks. I'm just throwing out a hypothetical. They never got docked those 3 weeks of sick. And those 3 weeks of sick or vacation are still there. So how are they getting to buy back all that time if they actually use those days? That was the question.
Yeah.
If anybody brought that forward, great. If they ended up not, that's fine too. Just curious.
Yeah. So yeah, Councilmember Guillen. Sorry. Yeah, we don't have any record of receiving a question of that nature.
Okay. Thank you.
And if administratively, I would assume that there's an oversight for that somebody is tracking when employees aren't there and taking off time and not documenting it. Would that not be correct?
Yeah, that's 100% correct. In fact, in this, the intent of this sort of document, especially in industry standard, especially in public sector municipalities that are so stringent and governed, by the state we have these documents in place so that they supersede any outdated practices or directives that aren't formally addressed. And so this document brings the city up to speed and up to date on so many of these issues. So if there are outdated practices that occur like that, absolutely. And this is in section 1, is we encourage employees to bring these forward to the Human Resources Department so that we can take a look into it and investigate.
Yeah, so basically there's nothing within this manual that changed that allowed that or didn't allow it. It would be a practice that was not allowable, period, and if somebody's aware of it, should bring it to someone's attention.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? We have a motion.
This is Councilmember Aguayo. I move the item.
Can I have a second, please?
Councilmember Queristoli, second.
Okay. Resolution number 20032, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Paramount rescinding resolution number 19027 and adopting the updated city personnel manual, has been moved by Councilmember Aguayo and seconded by Councilmember Quay-Arstallings. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Queristallings?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Next, resolution number 20033.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, this next item is also a personnel matter, and it deals with a minimum wage law for part-time employees. State law requires us to keep our part-time employees at or above the state minimum wage. So with this increase again will occur on January 1st, 2021. And by adopting this resolution, we'll be able to stay in line with state law in terms of pay for part-time employees. So I'll turn it back over to Andrew Villalpando, who will handle this item. Andrew?
Thank you, John. I'm actually going to hand it over to our HR manager, Jonathan, again, who will provide input on this item.
Thank you. In 2016, the state passed a minimum wage law that increases the minimum wage annually until it reaches $15 an hour in 2022. It is now that time of year that we have to adjust the city's lowest pay ranges to be in compliance with the minimum wage. There are two general fund classifications, recreation leader and social media aide, whose pay ranges do not contain viable entry-level starting rates to be compliant with the state's new minimum wage of $14 an hour. Therefore, we are proposing to move these classifications ranges from range 41 to range 48, where new hires can start at or above the minimum wage. The 1 year estimated fiscal impact is over $12,000. In the STAR program, which operates using state grant funds, the STAR program leader position has the same issue. Furthermore, given that we are now competing with other employers who are also now paying higher wages due to the minimum wage increase, retaining employees has been difficult. Thus, we are proposing a 6% COLA to all part-time STAR employees' pay rates. This will make the lowest paid position compliant with the minimum wage, address internal pay equity, and maintain competitiveness within our labor market. The 1 year estimated fiscal impact is about $51,000. It is recommended that the City Council read by title only and adopt Resolution 2033.
Thank you, Jonathan. Questions? Not entertain a motion.
So moved, almost.
Second, Aguayo.
Okay. Resolution number 20033, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Paramount amending resolution number 19044 to comply with state minimum wage law by updating the authorization position and listing of salary table for part-time city employees. Moved approval by Vice Mayor Olmos, seconded by Councilmember Aguayo. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Quer-Stallings?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. We're going to move to item 15, the pipeline franchise agreement. This is an AB item.
Yes, ma'am. Indeed, it is, Madam Mayor. There will be one presentation, but we'll need two votes on this. So this is something that our Assistant City Manager, Andrew Villalpando, will walk you through. Andrew?
Thank you, John. Again, good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. Before I jump in, I just have a few slides. I'm sorry, I don't have any slides this evening, but I wanted to just explain a little bit what we'll be doing this evening, what we'll be asking you to do. This is simply a notice of intent to hold a public hearing. So I won't have in-depth information for you on the agreements yet. However, we will bring you in-depth information if the council does approve holding a public hearing at the next City Council meeting. So with that, just a little bit of information for you on what we're doing this evening here. Paramount's situated adjacent to a global economy of petroleum and natural gas ports. We sit atop a robust network of underground pipelines that run throughout Southern California. Most of the pipelines that run beneath Paramount, which are maintained by various utility and fuel franchises, originate many miles outside of our city. Yes, they run beneath our city, but they're part of a larger complex of networks of pipelines that carry product destined for larger ports in Long Beach and Los Angeles. The pipelines that run within the state of California are regulated by the California Public Utilities Commission. So although federal and state law does not enable the city to regulate the operation of these pipelines, in other words, these pipelines are mandated by are allowed by the state to operate, regardless of what action the city takes. The city may enter into an agreement with these franchises just so at least we can maintain some control and understanding on how they're maintained. For example, some of provisions that are included in franchise agreements, one of which might be to provide the city with copies of all environmental reports that they file with the environmental agencies. Another provision might be to immediately notify the city in the event of a spill or environmental or safety threat. Another provision may be to remediate damage according to applicable environmental laws. And also, which is an important aspect of franchise agreements, is to establish a fee that these franchises would pay to the city for operating beneath our city. These fees are established by the California Public Utilities Committee, and they are set. They are established in Public Utilities Code section 6231.5. And fees are essentially structured on a formula that take into consideration the pipe length and the pipe diameter. So that said, we do have 2 pipeline franchise agreements that expired in 2019. Obviously, we have a big interest, and it benefits the city to try to enter into an agreement with these franchises, especially as laws and regulations, safety practices, and development technology has changed over the years. It's important to note that franchises are strictly liable for all damage caused in connection with the use or operation of a franchise or by any other facility failure. And there's strict liability language in the California Public Utilities Code that would be expressly included in any such agreement. So in order for the City Council to enter into a franchise agreement by ordinance, it would require that we hold a public hearing at a future meeting and then adopt it at a subsequent meeting by the City Council. So at this point, it's recommended that the City Council set the public hearing only for consideration of 2 gasoline pipeline franchise agreements, one of which is for Line 80, which is operated by Tesoro SoCal Pipeline, and the other is Line 63, operated by Pacific Pipeline System, LLC. Set both of these public hearing dates for the next meeting on January 12th, 2021 at 6 p.m. in the City Council chambers. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Are there questions? Hearing none, can I have a motion on item A?
Councilmember Quer-Stallings, I move the item. Item A.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
May I have a second?
This is Councilmember Aguirre, I second the item.
Thank you. Councilmember Quer-Stallings moved approval of the notice of intent to hold a public hearing, ordinance number 1143 for the pipeline franchise agreement with Pacific Pipeline System LLC, seconded by Councilmember Aguayo. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Quer-Stallings?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Now I need a motion on Part B.
So moved.
Second by Quer-Stallings.
Thank you. Motion to approve notice of intent to hold the public hearing, ordinance number 1144 for the pipeline franchise agreement, moved by Vice Mayor Olmos, seconded by Quer-Stallings. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Quer-Stallings?
Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. Yes.
And Vice Mayor Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Next item, Measure R, funding agreement with the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority.
Yes, our Public Works Director, Ms. Adriana Figueroa, will handle this item. Ms. Figueroa?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, back in 2014, a presentation was made to the City Council on the city's application to the Gateway Cities Council of Governments, or COG, as part of the I-710 Early Action Funding Program. The project consists of the widening of Alondra Boulevard from Hunsaker Avenue to Lakewood Boulevard. The total cost for the design is estimated at $4.6 million, and the future construction cost is roughly estimated at over $48.6 million. And I'll go into a little bit more detail in the next slides. I'm not sure that it moved. It is. Sorry, hang on one second. There we go. Okay. Alondra Boulevard is classified as a principal arterial with an average traffic count of 26,000 vehicles daily. It is also considered a regional truck route with goods movement from the I-710 to the 605 freeway. The widening of Alondra was proposed in order to improve traffic flow and reduce congestion in the corridor. Because of the regional connectivity, the design work for this project qualify for Measure R regional funding under the I-605-91 Hotspots Interchange Program. So as you can see on this map, the proposed improvements run on Alondra from Hunsaker Avenue to Lakewood Boulevard. If you're wondering what about the area on Alondra west of Hunsaker, that area will be covered as part of the I-710 improvement project. Improvements will include roadway and intersection widening with 3 lanes in each direction. It will include median and parkway narrowing to make way for the added lane and resurfacing of the street, of course. And the most expensive component of the project would be the undergrounding of overhead utilities. The funding agreement before you is only for design work, and it is through Metro's Early Action Funding Program. It is for $4.6 million that will include preliminary design, environmental documents, and the final construction plans for both street improvements and the undergrounding of the Edison transmission and distribution lines. So with that, it is recommended that the City Council approve the Measure R funding agreement with Metro for the improvements on Alondra from Hunsaker Avenue to Lakewood Boulevard and authorize the mayor or her designee to execute the agreement. That concludes my report, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Adriana. Questions?
I have one.
Okay.
Councilmember Crestone. Adriana, approximately when would this project begin?
That is a very good question, Councilmember Stallings. The item before you is for the funding agreement. This is obviously only for the design work. Design work usually takes about a year or 2 years for something of this magnitude. After that, we would have shovel-ready projects that, or particularly this project, this segment, that would qualify for any potential federal funding if that becomes available, or as part of another regional construction pot of money.
Okay, thank you. And I remember when Alondra Boulevard was only 1 lane. And so when it went to two lanes on each side, it was a major project. I can imagine now it was a 3. Thank you for your information.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion?
This is Councilmember Aguayo. I move the item.
We have Stallings second.
Okay, it's been moved by Councilmember Aguayo that we approve Measure R funding agreement with the Los Angeles County Metropolitan Transportation Authority for Alondra Boulevard Improvements Project from Hunsaker to Lakewood, and was seconded by Cuellar Stallings. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Cuellar Stallings?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos?
Yes.
Mayor Lemons?
Yes. Okay, the next item is an award of contract for landscape maintenance services.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. This item involves the award of contract for landscape maintenance services. As I mentioned to the City Council previously, we were going to do this to make sure that the cost that we are currently paying for these services is reflective of our maintenance standards. And as you know, our landscape maintenance standards are very, very high. We all love and really appreciate our nicely landscaped medians, parkways, and parks that are throughout town. This is definitely something we're known for. People tell us constantly how nice our medians look. It's, in a sense, become our signature. So we went out to bid recently for this service, and we're going to recommend to you that we stick with our current contract, Brightview, with some added changes and conditions. So to go over the report for you is our Public Works Director, Ms. Adriana Figueroa, who will handle the item. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, the city's contract for landscape maintenance was last executed in 2012 with Valley Crest. In 2014, Valley Crest changed its name to Brightview. And in September of this year, the city issued a request for proposals for landscape maintenance services. This is a critical service contract for the city. The contractor is tasked with the maintenance of our medians, parks, and ivy walls. It is that greenery that distinguishes us from any other surrounding cities, as John indicated, and it is imperative that the company that is selected understands the critical nature of this service and has the capacity to uphold our image. Oops, sorry, it's going too fast. As indicated, the RFP was published on September 24th of this year. 6 companies requested information and 2 firms submitted proposals by the deadline of November 4th. Out of curiosity, we inquired with the other firms, and for a variety of reasons, some COVID-related and others related to current negotiations with LA County, the other firms did not submit a proposal. As required by law, service contracts are not solely dependent on cost, but rather on a number of components, and I'll go into our criteria on the next slide. We review both proposals and conducted interviews with the 2 firms. We looked at the firm's experience with similar services, particularly as it relates to experience with maintenance of drought-tolerant plant material. We also looked at the company's history in the industry in terms of how well established they are. Quality control is incredibly important to us, and so we looked at their proposed quality control practices. And of course, staffing levels. This was another critical component in the evaluation process. We looked at their proposed staffing levels for our medians in parks. That was one of the primary criteria. Sorry, my clicker is not working for some reason. Can someone help me? Thank you. Oops, now it's going too fast. Based on that analysis, the report before you recommends awarding a contract to Brightview. The contract amount is for $535,190 per year, which is an increase of $35,774 to the existing contract we have with them. This would be a 2-year contract only. In terms of the second bid that was submitted by North Star Landscape at a cost of $480,540 annually. However, a review of their proposal and interview analysis demonstrated that they had insufficient capacity to meet the city's required service levels. Oh, sorry, you moved it, right? I'm sorry, I'm going through the slides. Okay, thank you. Can you move it before? Okay, good, thank you. The reason why staff is recommending Brightview is that Brightview is a well-established company with over 70 years of landscape experience. They are actually a result of a merger of 2 landscape companies, Brickman and Valley Crest, back in 2014. They are a nationwide company with over 22,000 employees and contracts with many municipalities, including the cities of Signal Hill, West Hollywood, Torrance, Santa Clarita, and the county areas of Playa Vista, to name a few. Looking at our current experience with Brightview, we realize there are some ongoing concerns, particularly regarding the maintenance of our medians. In preparing the RFP and reviewing Brightviews proposal, we identified a combination of factors that have contributed to this. One is that the existing contract we have with Brightview does not account for the maintenance of drought-tolerant landscape. Also, the maintenance of drought-tolerant landscape is very different than turf. Once drought-tolerant planting material is established, it requires quite a bit of maintenance to ensure that it's continually looking fresh. As an example, in comparison, turf requires only mowing, and when a mower is going through, it is a fast operation, and as the grass is being mowed, the weeds are also being cut along with it. That is not the case with drought-tolerant planting. That requires constant evaluation of the plants and in some cases replacement altogether. Weeds are also more visible and require additional weeding. We have discussed this extensively with Brightview, and they have made some organizational changes in personnel to bring in a fresh pair of eyes that will monitor this contract closely. This is at the supervisory level. This new landscape maintenance service agreement with Brightview will include sufficient staffing levels at the operational or field level. Sustainability was also a key component of this RFP, and it required companies to list the number of zero emissions equipment to be used under this contract. Brighview's proposal commits to 100% zero emissions for all of their small tools, and that is electric hedge trimmers, blowers, and string trimmers. Zero emissions is difficult to achieve on a larger type of equipment. This equipment is expensive and for that reason not widely available. However, given Brightview's nationwide presence and experience utilizing zero-emission mowers, they have committed to utilizing one electric mower out of the two that will be included as part of the service. So with that, it is recommended that the City Council authorize the award of contract for landscape maintenance services to Brightview in the amount of $535,190 per year for a 2-year contract, and authorize the mayor or her designee to execute the agreement. That concludes my report, but I'll be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Adriana. Are there questions? If not, we'll entertain a motion for the award of contract.
I motion the items for approval of Councilmember Quer-Stolling.
Can I have a second, please?
So moved.
Okay, been moved by Councilmember Quer-Stolling that we award the contract for landscape maintenance services to Brightview, Gardena, California, in the amount of $535,190 per year for a 2-year term, and authorize the mayor or her designee to execute the agreement. This is seconded by Vice Mayor Olmos. Can we have a roll call?
Councilmember Aguayo.
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen.
Yes.
Councilmember Quer-Stallings.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos.
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Next is resolution number 20034.
Yes, Madam Mayor. We're always diligently searching for grants to build amenities that would benefit our residents. This next item involves a grant application that we want to submit for the multi-phase bikeway project. And this is something that you're all familiar with, that would go through the middle of town. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Public Works Director once again, Ms. Adriana Figueroa, who will handle this item. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, the item before you tonight is a resolution approving the city's application for grant funding to the state's Proposition 68 program through the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy for Phase 3 of the West Santa Ana Branch Bikeway Trail Project. As you know, the West Santa Ana Branch Bike Trail Project is a multi-phase project, as John indicated, that runs along the railroad corridor known as the West Santa Ana Branch. Attached to your report are maps showing the various phases of the project. Phase 3 is eligible to apply for funding under this program, and it is located between Garfield Avenue and Rosecrans Avenue along the West Santa Ana right-of-way. The estimated project cost for Phase 3 is $4.2 million. With that, it is recommended that the City Council read by title only and adopt resolution number 20034 that allows us to submit the application for funding. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Adriana. We have questions, comments?
Adriana, this is Vice Mayor Olmos, really quick. You said this is from Garfield to Rosecrans, right?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, so this will be like the bike lane is that the one that's basically by Somerset that goes all the way to Bellflower? Is it something around that line?
So essentially,
Look at it.
all of the phases will connect to Bellflower, yes. So phase 1 has already been built, and that is from Lakewood to Somerset. The phase 2 is from Somerset to Paramount and Rosecrans. And phase 3, which is this one, would be from Rosecrans to Garfield. And phase 4 would be from Garfield to the LA River. Does that answer the question?
It does. You said phase 2 is what? I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Phase 2 would be from Somerset, it's roughly Somerset and Hayter, to Paramount and Rosecrans.
No, perfect, thank you, because a lot of residents have been asking if we can get a walkway from Garfield to Rosecrans. That's come up many times, so you clarified it, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Can I have a second, please?
Claire Stallings.
Okay, it's been moved by Vice Mayor Olmos that we read by title only and adopt resolution number 20034, and that's been seconded by Councilmember Cuellar Stallings. Can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Quer Stallings,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos,
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. Okay, next we have comments and committee reports from council members. And let's see, okay. And we're going to start with Vice Mayor Olmos. And just move down the line according to the pictures, ladies, so you can prepare.
Perfect, thank you, thank you. So first of all, this is for Adriana. I'm not sure if Adriana is on the line from Public Safety, but there has been some gentlemen kind of walking around the city. It looks like they supposedly work for Edison or the gas companies, and they're trying to help residents kind of qualify for some economic assistance, I'm sorry. John, have you heard of this, of SoCal Gas or the Edison sending out people to fill out applications for the residents?
No, I have not heard of that, but we can definitely check into that.
Absolutely, and if we can, because I think it's just awareness for the residents to not sign anything would be great.
Sure, you got it.
Next, I just actually wanted to thank all the departments. I think you guys have been doing a phenomenal job of moving our city forward. Your dedication to the city has not gone unnoticed, and I just wanted to say thank you to each and one of you guys. I also want to do a shout out to the residents who have actually been really supporting our local businesses. Please keep it up. They really need our support right now. I would really like to send my condolences to all the families of Paramount that have lost a loved one due to COVID. It's getting closer and closer to a lot of us here in Paramount, and you guys are all in my prayers. And just to my colleagues in the Paramount community, please stay safe and happy holidays, and looking forward to 2021.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Aguayo.
Okay, just a reminder, like Vice Mayor almost stated, it feels like it's definitely getting closer and closer to home. So just be safe, do your part. So we all have to do our part. Again, that 1% matters. And I don't know if that's the actual statistic, but that 1%, well, 1% in California is a whole lot of people. So let's just do our part. And Merry Christmas. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Aguayo. Councilmember Guillen.
Just reiterate what everybody else mentioned. Say I had a good time with my family, waving to everybody who came out for the Santa's train. I think that was like a bright spot when everything else is so doom and gloom with COVID right now. Just everybody, please continue to be safe, wear your mask, wash your hands, and my condolences to all the families that COVID has hit, and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Councilmember Cuellar Stallings.
Same here. Thank you for the Parks and Recreation staff for the beautiful, going out with a train. It was kind of different, not being with other council members or commissioners and other, you know, people that are involved in the community from the chamber and you know, even inviting your own personal family. But it was interesting to have my daughter and my granddaughter, you know, us three of us on that whole little caboose. So, but thank you. All the residents were doing their part, staying with their families, staying in the yard. Some of them were staying out in the sidewalks, and it was just a beautiful, quiet, peaceful time, and be able to just wave and interact with the community that way. And also, it was a beautiful Santa breakfast drive that we had by Leonti and the Paramount Swap Meet. I really loved all the different little stations that the city had, and there was a couple of organizations involved also. Thank you so much for being involved in that. And I mean, just thank you, Parks and Recreation. You really went out for our community, and it's been a rough year. And my hearts go out to you. The same with my colleagues that, you know, you're close to family members that's been, you know, the situation with the COVID has really been hitting close to home too here. And my neighbors down the street have just got ill, and it was really rough even for her to call me and let me know. And my prayers are with all of you, everyone in our community. I mean, hopefully 2021 will be a better year. And last, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and God bless all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cuellar Stallings. I have two brief committee reports to give you. The first one would be from the Sanitation District, reporting that what's going on with COVID continues to be mirrored in the wastewater. They tested at the highest levels to date for the COVID virus, showing that what we're seeing in the news media reflective of what's happening over the holiday season is exactly what they're seeing in our wastewater. So more than enough confirmation that we all need to do our best to stay at home and stay masked and protect each other. Also, the Celico WIB today informed us that they have a grant that's been given to them by the COG that is for the homeless, and the grant is going to be for housing as well as job training and helping them find employment. So they'll be working, I'm assuming, with Steve Comparulas. We've put them in touch together. Their budget, or their goal, I should say, is to help 100. So I certainly hope that anybody who's in the city of Paramount who's facing a homeless situation, who's looking for housing, who may need job training or employment, gets a hold of Steve and takes advantage of this grant money from Celico. I would like to add my thanks to the entire staff. I know it takes just about every department, from Public Works, Public Safety, and of course Parks and Recreation, to put on the fantastic events that we have every year. I thought you did an amazing job, from the tree lighting, Santa Train, the breakfast with Santa at this time of COVID, and changing things up so quickly and making them work for our community. I know those items were certainly a bright spot in my day, and I hope they were for many residents. I know when I left the breakfast for Santa, they were, which was only about an hour into it, they were already over 1,000 people that had driven through the event. So thank you again, staff, for doing such a fantastic job and helping lift the spirits of the residents of Paramount. And I join all of my colleagues in saying that our hearts go out to each and every family who has suffered a loss and whose family members are suffering with COVID, and know that we hear you and we're doing everything that we can to assist you through this time. And with that, do we have staff reports or comments?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we do. I just have a few things to go over. Already mentioned was the COVID testing for our community that's going to take place on multiple days starting tomorrow. Just to report to you all about street racing. I know this was brought up at several council meetings over the past few months. And the LA County Sheriff's Department has been actively patrolling our streets, looking for street racers. In the past 3 weekends, they've been very successful at preventing intersection takeovers and have actually been able to catch a couple of street racing incidents while they were in progress. Case in point, 2 cars were impounded over the weekend. One at the intersection of Downey and Alondra for exhibition of speed. One was at Illinois, and the other one was at Illinois and Jackson, and that was for doing donuts in the intersection there. Both of them were from out of town. One of them was from the city of Long Beach, and the other one was from the city of Los Angeles. So they continue to come here, and our deputies continue to try and make sure that our streets remain safe and peaceful for everybody. Moving on, we did start a toy drive that happened starting at the Breakfast with Santa event on Friday night and then into today. So I wanted to have Mr. Johnson go over real briefly how it did over the past 4 days. Dave?
Yes, thank you, John. So at the Breakfast with Santa drive-thru, we collected probably well over 50 individual toys as part of that part of that toy drive with the Women's Club. We also, John sent out a memo to city staff, and we collected, again, well over 50 toys from city staff that will go to this toy drive. We also put staff over at Mariposa for 2 days, Monday and Tuesday, and in that process, our community came out and dropped off about 121 individual toys for this toy drive. So we have well over 200 additional toys that we're going to provide the Women's Club for part of their toy drive. And again, they worked with the school district. They identified those families that were in need, and so these kids are going to have a more happy Christmas this year because there's some toys coming their way.
Thank you, Dave. The last thing I do have, Madam Mayor, is I'm just want to say I'm very proud of the work our staff did over the holidays to try and ensure to bring in some peace and some cheer during the holidays. So again, very, very proud of our staff from all the departments that participated in the holiday events, as you had kindly noted as well. And lastly, on behalf of all the staff, I'd like to wish you and everybody out in the community, as well as the council members, happy holidays from the Paramount City staff. And that's it, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With that, we're going to recess to the successor agency for the Paramount Redevelopment Agency. Can I call that meeting to order, please, and have roll call of council members?
Councilmember Aguayo.
I'm here.
Councilmember Guillen.
Here.
Councilmember Quer Stallings.
Here.
Vice Mayor Olmos.
Here.
Mayor Lemons.
Here. Are there any public comments?
No, ma'am.
May I have a motion on the consent calendar?
So moved.
Second, Claire Stallings.
A moved by Vice Mayor Olmos, seconded by Councilmember Cuellar Sons. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Aguayo.
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen.
Yes.
Councilmember Quer Stallings.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Olmos.
Yes.
Mayor Lemons.
Yes. If there's no other business, we'll stand adjourned until January 12th, 2021 at 6 p.m. With that, I am going to reconvene the Paramount City Council meeting, and we will go into closed session, conference with real estate property negotiators, Government Code Section 54956.8. Are we back?
We are, Madam Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, we're waiting for Mr. Kavanaugh to unmute. There he is. Okay.
I'm on, John.
Great. Thanks, John.
Okay, so if we can move forward, at this time we have an announcement from our city attorney regarding the closed session item.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. In accordance with the government code, the city council authorized a closed session entitled Conference with Real Property Negotiators. The property in question is property APN number 6270-025-026 and APN number 6270-025-027. After discussions with the city manager as the agency negotiator, the city council, on a vote from 5-0, approved the new tenant at that location. That concludes my presentation, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Kavanaugh. Being no further business, this meeting stands adjourned until January 12, 2021 at 6 p.m. Thank you, everyone.